Hello and welcome back, guys. After a long period, we are back again. So today, what we are gonna be discussing about is an article relating to conflict era abuses, which is produced by Human Rights Watch. Okay, so they have recently published a world report containing 651 pages. So in that, what they have said, what they have talked about is how like the freedom of expression has been is constantly being diminished in our country. Okay, so Nepal, no justice for conflict era abuses, new limits on free expression association. So PM Oli during the visits of rebuilding site of temple that collapsed during April 2015 earthquake, Kathmandu, Nepal. So New York, the government of Nepal is working to undermine the rights to freedom of expression and association while denying justice for conflict era abuses, Human Rights Watch said today in its World Report 2020. So, harassment and arrest of journalists increased while draft legislation placed draconian restrictions on online expressions, and the authorities sought to constrain NGOs and civil society. So, as you've heard, a lot of cases about harassment and arrest of journalists as well, and then the new IT bill that has been passed, which puts a lot of restrictions on online expressions. So they are talking about that, and then the Nepalese people struggled for decades to institutionalize a democratic constitutional order, and yet are now being denied the rights by the very people they hope would represent those values. So the ones who were actually fighting for our particular rights, people were pretty much expecting that they would preserve those values, but those are the people who are actually denying those rights to the general public. So political parties, once they are in government, are fighting tooth and nail to stifle critical voices and protect those alleged responsible for past war crimes. In the 652-page World Report 2020, its 30th edition, Human Rights Watch reviews human rights practices in nearly 100 countries. In its introductory essay, Executive Director Kenneth Roth says that the Chinese government, which depends on repression to stay in power, is carrying out the most intense attack on the global human rights system in decades. He finds that Beijing's actions both encourage and gain support from autocratic populists around the globe, while Chinese authorities use their economic clout to deter criticism from other governments. It is urgent to resist the assault, which threatens decades of progress on human rights and our future. In the past year, Nepal has arrested journalists, bloggers, and rappers for reporting on corrupt business practices, publishing negative movie reviews, or singing about youth culture. The government has also put in place a variety of policies aimed at limiting the autonomy of non-governmental groups, many of which campaign for human rights, accountability, and social change. Yet, another draft law aims to prevent the National Human Rights Commission from independently bringing cases to court. It's just a draft. The United Nations Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women reported that rape cases appear to be increasing. Domestic violence is the leading cause of homicide in Nepal, yet the government's response is hindered by gaps in legislation, insufficient resources, and poor training. Women from marginalized communities are especially vulnerable to sexual violence. 1 in 5 rape cases is of a child under age 10. 1 in 5. The government has flouted its commitment to release its own official report, known as the Lal Commission Report, about the policing of protest in 2015, in which 66 people died. The transitional justice process to address grave abuses committed during the 1996-2006 conflict between government forces and the former rebels, who are now part of the government, is stalled. Despite commitments in the Comprehensive Peace Agreement and Nepal's obligations under international law, the government has repeatedly failed to implement a 2015 Supreme Court ruling to amend the law on transitional justice to prevent amnesties for the worst crimes. The process to reappoint commissioners to the lapsed transitional justice commissions has been undermined by political interference, and the government has declined to engage in meaningful consultations with victims groups. The government is also bending to Chinese demands by prohibiting domestic freedom of expression in relation to Tibet. During the visit of Chinese President Xi Jinping, at least two Nepali citizens were arrested for wearing cloth that featured a Tibetan flag. So, this is how basically the World Report 2020 has covered all the issues regarding the arrest of journalists, conflict era violences against human rights, and then after that, they have basically covered all those things that are happening in the country. So this is pretty good report. And if you would like to watch it, I'll definitely keep a link on the descriptions, and then you can read about it and then look for the original report as well. So I'll keep that whole report in the descriptions as well, so you can read it. It's 652 pages long. So they pretty much do a yearly report, and they do a comprehensive report of countries from all over the world regarding human rights violations. So all this stuff. So they are the ones who actually provide us with annual reports. So it's a very good organization to watch out for human rights reports. So that's it for today, guys. Until next time, bye bye.